or I'm trying to make stuff interesting. But this is actually a very interesting synoptic situation that is interesting on the western United States just as much as on the east. And so we'll get right to it. A very well advertised coastal low, complex interaction with a nice little shortwave coming across the Great Lakes is evolving as we speak. The models have been trying to figure out how far west to bring the heavier precipitation, and looks like you can almost make it here on radar imagery. The deformation zone is starting to set up right along I-99. So south and east of that would probably be where the heavier precipitation is. I'll show some surface stuff in a minute. But one thing to note is up here in New England, these dew points are still in the 20s. They are starting to climb a little bit. They have some warm air advection at the moment. But this is going to become very interesting here over the next 36 hours as this system moves northward and we get cold air dropping behind. Take a quick look at SPC stuff. And this is kind of, here we go. One of the things I find interesting is you actually have a little bit of a lee trough developing up the eastern seaboard, just along the metro areas. And the best moisture convergence probably setting up pretty close to the Allegheny front. So this is going to get really interesting here just southeast of here this afternoon and evening, where the heavy rain will tend to want to bank up against the Allegheny front, and you've got pretty deep moisture convergence in there. Meanwhile, the back edge of the light rain is probably going to stop right around I-99, and then farther west, you actually have some, a little bit of probably some surface downsloping occurring. So like Pittsburgh may not get much at all as we go through the next few hours. So kind of interesting here. But as usual here in this part of the world, you have a coastal storm, but then you've got the hang back up, you got a hang back surface low over here, and the reflection aloft is probably quite a bit more interesting. So one thing I wanted to bring up, and this is something that's interesting here on the west, we watch a lot on the west coast, is do you have a connection to the tropics or subtropics with a system like this? And here comes, the split flow in the west, things have been going around us all winter, but I was kind of like for giggles, hey, I wonder if this is a bit of an atmospheric river coming into the mid-Atlantic and northeastern US, because they do occur, and as more and more atmospheric research is done in the western United States, there's been now an emphasis to look at New England in particular, because as the climate warms, there's several computer models, there's several simulations out there that are suggesting that precipitation will increase in the northeast US, and it might be related to atmospheric rivers. So I was like, oh, this will be interesting to look at. And sure enough, here's our 6-hour, look at our surface low here, there's 12. My point being is that really you can make an argument that this is a weak atmospheric river developing because it is tapping into the Gulf Stream waters. Now, it's not like we see out west where intergray vapor transport can be over 1,000. This is still up over 500, and this sticks around here for a good 6 hours, getting fed into southern New England, and then eventually veers off into the Canadian Maritimes. So it kind of loses definition here, but I would contend it's not a long fetch, but you don't need a long fetch when you have nice warm waters from the Gulf Stream not that far away. So this is actually pretty good moisture transport into this low going up the East Coast, which again, State College will miss out for the heaviest rain, but the eastern US will be pretty wet here over the next few days going up into the Allegheny front. What will be interesting as you go farther out in time, the next system that's coming out of the southwest US, we are actually developing a pretty good moisture feed into the Midwest, which is exactly where we don't need it, of course, and that's going to be by 54 to 60 hours. We got pretty good moisture transport and another lee surface low developing over pretty much the same place the 970 or 968 bomb occurred. This is much more typical for late March, but there's still good moisture transport occurring up into the Midwest here as we go into the weekend. So I would expect more pretty heavy precip in there over the next few days. Closer to home though, we'll just go right to top down here. So here's 300 millibars. React. Go. All right. So here's our jet now. And there's our 300 millibar upper level low closing off. 500, this is the thing that caught my eye. Actually, both 500 and 850 caught my eye today. 500 millibar temperatures underneath the closing off upper low are minus 26, minus 28. That's pretty darn cold for March. But 850 temperatures, I expected, 850 temperatures are, gotta be minus 8, minus 9 underneath this upper low. Minus 6, minus 5. It's interesting to me because that's not as cold as I would have expected it to be by now with the upper level low closing off and deepening. But that does create an interesting situation for tomorrow. And at first, when I saw the local weather service put it in, I'm like, are they nuts? And then I saw this. Here's the 12Z sounding from Harrisburg. So here's 6 hours, 9 hours. So this is 0Z tonight, nice and saturated. The precipitable water nice and high. Okay, fine. Okay, we start swinging around to the northwest, but watch what happens tomorrow, right around noontime. So that 850 millibar temperature is minus 4. I'm starting to kind of on snow. Yesterday, I was, as I was looking over Rob's shoulder and I'm trying to pre-brief myself, I'm like, snow looks pretty good. Actually, I'm much more interested in this for us convective weenies out there. Minus 20 saturated, minus 10 is almost saturated by 33 hours. So if you're saturated minus 10, saturated minus 20, you've got pretty good lift in the atmosphere. Your Li is 0. What would I start thinking about putting in the forecast? Thunder? The question is, do you get enough charge separation? And this is something that in the Pacific Northwest, this would be a slam dunk. Put thunder in, put hail in. Because the warm air, the warm waters just off the west coast would guarantee that you're going to hit that 50-degree temperature. So this is Harrisburg. So keep in mind, we'll be colder and closer to the upper, but we'll be closer to the upper low. This looks like an isolated thunderstorm sounding for tomorrow afternoon. Will it happen? Well, will you hear rumble in State College? Well, this is State College, let's be real. But I find that this is an interesting sounding for tomorrow afternoon and evening because if you can get a shower in this situation, if you do have enough moisture, your wet bulb 0 is right at freezing. So you can drag the snow levels down to 1,000 feet. So tomorrow might be one of those days where one of my forecasters in Portland calls it this is the chunky rain sounding. Because you get a little bit of snow, you get a little rain, you get a little hail. If you hear rumble of thunder in Portland, by the way, everyone runs to the windows in my building because it doesn't happen very often. But this looks more like that kind of sounding for tomorrow afternoon and evening. And looking at the 12Z and looking how the cold aloft at 500 looks really good, but the 850 doesn't look as cold as I would expect by now. It better get a lot stronger quickly, or we're going to probably end up with chunky rain, not really a big snow threat. But of course, if you go up in elevation, you only have to go up 500,000 feet, and yeah, it'll stick. So, found that interesting. So let's go to the model land. And so here's the NAM. I'm going to animate just because I want to scroll down a little bit. You can see how the, actually, I really want to look at 700. All right, so that's 72 hours. There's our upper low. All right, I'm gonna have to. There's 24 hours. I'll just zoom in on down. You tell I don't use this very often. All right, so here's our double low structure by. Stop flipping. Okay, so there's 24 hours. So this is 12Z tomorrow morning. The surface low moving up the east coast. By the way, we're in a high tide. Remember the full moon last night, 2 nights ago? So we got coastal flooding issues, minor stuff up and down from New Jersey northward with this. Pretty good surface low, good onshore fetch. But with this upper level low track, this is tomorrow morning by 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, the upper level low is almost overhead. What I find interesting is the moisture field. This is hard to do on this laptop.
Can you shrink the screen so it all?
You know, can we? Awesome, that's it. Thank you. So there's our center millibar RH. So there's that upper level moving overhead. It's going to be probably not a lot of surface reflection to this, but it certainly is a pretty potent upper low. So tomorrow looks like cloudy, showery, chunky rain, snow flurries kind of day. While New England, this is cold enough for snow up in here. So the National Weather Service got winter storm watches all the way up in there for 6+, 7+. According to the NAM, absolutely. Let's go with the GFS. This is a very similar look to things tomorrow afternoon. There's that nice RH. There's the upper low a little farther north on the NAM or on the GFS, but pretty much passing overhead during peak heating, which again, that should really get the convection going. Then that low coming out of the southwest US doesn't look all that strong, but it has a bit of a tilt to it. And then that breaks out into pretty good rains. There's that, you notice what's happening in Nebraska there. Let me get my contours right. I think that's over a ½ inch. Oh, it's 50 millimeter. Okay, yeah.
Quarter.
Okay, quarter. All right. And then as we go into the weekend, though, after we get through tomorrow, there's the surface high coming in behind that. Thicknesses are 522. So that looks pretty cold. That will be quite cold. And then we start getting that surface high spreading off to the east. So it looks like a pretty nice weekend around here once we get through tomorrow. And then by Sunday, we've got southwest return flow starting here in State College, just in time for me to head back to Portland. And as we go into early next week, looks pretty quiet. That low that comes out into the central US, as you can see here, is shearing apart. And then this looks more like a spring pattern, except notice the deep upper low over Quebec, and we do have an upper level low off the west coast of the US. So we have a little bit of a split flow, but in general, things are quieter as we go into next week, although there's our next system coming in here. It looks like, what's that? Let's see. 84, 90, 96. Okay, so this is the next system coming in on Monday. Week overrunning event. Looks like our 850 temperatures are still on the cold side, but it looks like it'll be too warm for rain, at least at this point. Thickness is about 534, 537. You probably want them a little bit lower this time of year just because the solar heating overwhelms you. So that might be a little interesting to watch, especially since we'll have a. Yeah, I'll be very curious to see how that pans out. I wish I was looking at that a little bit more closely. So, forecast from this is going to go on the rest of the day into the evening. I noticed our temperature hit 42 and started falling off. That's typical. We're on the cold advection side of the upper low. We're probably not going to warm up anymore from here. Probably just kind of hang out at this all evening. The classic Portland rain changing to showers overnight. Probably not a lot of temperature movement, maybe down a couple of degrees. And then tomorrow might be interesting. Like I said, chunky rain, showers, some snow in the mountains. Will it accumulate? Well, here and there, sure. But this time of year, when you get that kind of snow shower activity, it snows for 20 minutes to a half hour, stops. You get just enough solar heating to warm the ground up. It melts. You end up with another round of snow. So I think if we get anything like that, it'll stick maybe in the highlands and grassy surfaces kind of thing. No big deal there. And then Clears out Friday night, Saturday. Looks like a pretty nice weekend. Next system comes in on Monday. And weather challenge, Pueblo. I didn't really spend a lot of time there, but they do have a system coming in here. They'll be on the back side of this upper level low, kicking out into the plains. So Pueblo is a little bit off onto the plains a little bit, so they get less of an upslope component, but they still can. This looks like it goes, let's see. Yeah, it looks like it goes just south of them, so that might get a little interesting precip-wise for weather challenge. That's for Saturday. So I think, do you guys forecast for Saturday or no? No, then you don't have to worry about it. So, anything, thoughts, questions, ideas, thoughts on special requests? This is the problem with doing map briefing at 12:45. So yeah, so pretty interesting system coming up the East Coast right now. I don't have anything else.
Anybody have any questions or anything else? How warm will it get on Sunday?
You know, I mean, all right. I'll accept that challenge.
Not as warm as I want.
How was warm then?
By the way, have you ever played with today's Google Doodle? You can write your own music. It's fun.
Oh, okay.
It's very cool.
All right, let's take a quick look here from on the National Blend of Models. Really? Really? I was thinking 50s, or okay, but the problem is that we're going to be pretty cold Saturday night, so we'll have to do quite a bit of recovery. To 6. No. Well, National Blend seems to want to go upper 40s, maybe 50 down. I think that's, yeah, that's near 50. Yeah, I wonder, I thought maybe we would hit 50 on Sunday, but we have to have a running start Sunday morning with the temperature, with the low temperatures. So I kind of like upper 40s, but the problem is we're going to start getting warmer vection on the backside. So if it can kick in a little bit, get a southerly flow in the afternoon, I can't rule it out, but not as optimistic as I was, especially seeing this. Upper 20s. That's the low for Sunday morning. That'd be a 25 degree diurnal swing with probably pretty high RHs. So that'd be hard to do. You could do it, but it'd be hard. Any other special requests? I don't know.
All right, well, thank you very much, Eric.
Yeah, sure.